Ah, Trickster. Welcome back to Muru's little show. I'm going to be talking about a past friend of mine that I was discussing earlier. And people really need to know that the most abusive people that can enter your life aren't necessarily abusive up front. More or less, they do their real damage once they're in. Once they know they can do things to you, after they've charmed you, after they've befriended you, after they've gotten to know you, this is where real abusers take place. And this is me talking about it. This is me talking about my perspective on a person I've known for a long time that turned out to be pretty much just toxic. And it's funny because, hello, Trickster. Yes, you are toxic. You don't want to admit you're toxic, but from how you've treated people, you're pretty damn toxic. So let's begin again, shall we? Let's begin to talk about Trickster, because last we left off, we were talking about how Trickster pretty much used me for my resources and used people around him for their resources and never really ever had anything to give. Now, see, people go through things. People have a lot of, the world's filled with problems, and that's okay as long as you know that the storm doesn't last forever. Okay. And after talking to a couple personal friends about this situation with Trickster, they all agreed. Trickster, you're abusive, very abusive. Okay. Very manipulative. And I'm letting people know about it. Why? Because people need to know about this kind of thing. People need to know what to watch out for when it comes to manipulation, when it comes to, I ain't gonna lie, borderline sociopath, if you ask me. But I wouldn't say that Trickster is that far. No. I've met sociopaths and narcissists. I will say that Trickster isn't necessarily, he's definitely not a narcissist. But some of the stuff that this dude will do, fam. So let's take a trip back in time after the fallout in 2013. After that fallout, I had enjoyed a wonderful year of peace and quiet, where I pretty much would not associate with Trickster or his little clique of friends. And I use the term clique because that's exactly how they act. That is exactly how they act. It's, they see you, they laugh with you, but you can always tell there's this underlying clique with only a few certain individuals, and they don't ever really let you in. You're always on the outside looking in on their little clique. They pretty much, and when I confronted Trickster about it, I was like, why do y'all act like a clique? And he's like, well, it's not really a clique. And I was like, no, it really is a clique, because you guys have this way of making people feel unwelcome and you never really allow other people in. And he says, well, we've grown together. We've had experiences together. We've done all these things together, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm sitting there thinking, I went to the military for 4 years. And during basic training, me and quite a few others have went through very similar life-changing experiences. People don't think that, but let me tell you something. The people you have trained with in basic training know you. You never forget that experience for as long as you live. You never will. And we've learned each other. We've grown together. We've done all these things. Okay. But we never acted like a clique. So this is how I can distinguish which is a clique and which is just, lifelong friends. See, I named Trickster's little clique the Wolf Pack because they were very clear about who was in and who was not. Very clear. No matter what you said, no matter what you did, if the clique didn't accept you, you weren't in. And the really messed up part about it is it didn't matter what you gave the clique. It didn't matter what you did for them. It didn't matter how prominent you were or how positive you were. The clique was still a clique. How many times have I heard people come to me and ask me about Trickster and the clique? Too damn many times. So let's dive back into that memory again. So yeah, the clique and I pretty much were not talking for the entire duration of 2013. And during this time, I lost quite a few friends, as well as my sister being murdered. She got murdered by her ex, and it was a very painful, very emotional time for me. But my own sister was very abusive towards me when I was a teenager, but that kind of, in a sense, helped me push through that emotionally, because she did those things and she never apologized for those things. So her getting murdered, and I'm gonna be honest when I say this, it felt more like karma finally came home to roost, basically. But we're not talking about her. We're talking about Trickster. So this whole time, I dismantled the Facebook group we were both part of. I wouldn't talk to them. I unfriended them on Facebook. I wouldn't, call, message, none of that stuff. Left them basically left them to their own desires. And lo and behold, so many mutual friends and so many mutual events was happening that eventually we end up crossing paths again. This time, I don't know whether it was guilt. I don't know if it was loneliness. I don't know what it was. But somewhere in there, we ended up talking again in 2014. A whole year later, we ended up talking again. And this time, I'm not going to lie to you, I made it a point to keep my distance. Because, long story short, with people like Trickster, there's always a catch. There's always some way that he's trying to get the upper hand. Of course, if you confront him on that, he's going to try to deny it. But the fact still remains. Every single person that's had any kind of real close friendship with you can vouch for me when I say this. It's pretty sad, I'm not going to lie. So we ended up talking again. We ended up, in a sense, reconciling. But when I look back at it, it was really more of we talked some things out, but I don't really remember much of an apology ever being issued. I really don't. Which that in itself was another life lesson. Ladies and gents, if they don't apologize for what they do not take them back in the fold. Do not. Do yourself a favor and do not take them back in the fold. Okay? But me, being the very forgiving, Samaritan that I am, went ahead and did this in phases. This time around, however, I said, you know what? I'm going to have to let Trickster prove himself before I let them get those advantages ever again. Which did come back to, like I said before in the first video, the karma did come back of me helping them out. I reached a point, I remember, where during 2014, I left my job in this retail hardware store. And I remember, excuse me, I remember I was looking for a place to stay. And Trickster was kind of like, well, hey, you can come stay with me. You know what? You've been good to me. I'm going to let you come stay with me. Don't even worry about the rent. Don't even worry about whatever. And I have to give Trickster his props for that because it was very honorable. Now, what I didn't know was that there were other people involved that was also paying rent and bills while I was broke. Now, I ended up landing a security job part-time, and that really only paid basically my phone bill and maybe groceries. It wasn't really enough for me to help with the bills and that kind of thing. So I took whatever odd jobs I could to survive, and survive I did. But I must give Trickster his props. He did keep up his end of the bargain, and I was allowed to stay there for a year rent free. I was. So I have to give him his props for that. This is why I'm saying he's not a narcissist. He's not a sociopath. He's just somebody that I believe some really bad things may have happened to when he was younger. And he carried a lot of these bad traits with him. And honestly, Trickster is one of those people that has the potential to be great. He could be a very honorable person when he wants to be. He can be very inspiring. Trickster really isn't as bad as a lot of people may think. But underneath it all, he's got a lot of stuff to fix. He's got a lot of mindsets to fix. It's kind of like dealing with Loki, the god of mischief. You know, somewhere in there, there is a grift, there is a con, there is something going on that you're not being, told about. But there's still a lovable person somewhere within that mix. This is Trickster, And like I said, I have to give him props for helping me out, because it would not be fair for me to sit here and talk about him and not talk about the good qualities. Everybody, has good qualities to some extent. If you're dealing with a psychopath or a narcissist or any of the cluster B spectrum, when it gets really hard to talk about the good qualities. But that's a whole other subject for more licensed professionals to talk about. Once again, we're talking about Trickster. But I remember leaving in 2015 their spot, and they did this whole thing of, oh, we're not renewing the lease, we're moving, so you're gonna have to take care of yourself, da 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 da. At this time, by the time he even said that, I had just landed my job at a retail / print shop that I currently have now. And I remember as soon as I got it, my best friend of, 15 years at the time had died. He died in a motorcycle accident. And I'm going to be honest, Lamar taught me a lot of things. He really, really did. But that's another video. So, Trickster, when you're good, you're good, baby. When you're good, you're good. But when you're bad, whew, you're really bad. Really bad. So, after said, incidents and going through these things with Trickster, I remember distinctly while living with him, a mutual friend of ours named Oscar had came by to visit. He came all the way from like North Carolina to come visit us and see what we were up to. And, he came to, Oscar originally came to see Trickster. And while he did that, he saw that I was there and was just like, oh, wow, Muru's here. And we're talking, we're laughing it up, we're having a good time, because we were all part of the same Facebook group. It was an artistic group that, was really inspiring, really high energy, really positive and motivational. And it's sad I had to get rid of that group, but everybody that knows me knows exactly why I had to cancel that. So, but he was like, oh, well, are you here with, said animation group? And I was like, no. Same continent, different countries. Okay. We don't, I was like, I may know them. They may know me, but after some said incidents, we are not affiliated in any way, shape, or form. And yeah, I openly said that in front of Trickster and let that junk settle in. I let Trickster know I will never, ever, ever associate or assist that group ever again. After the stuff that Trickster did, after the stuff that the rest of that group did, the clique, I will never give them any assistance. And that runs to this day. That will probably run until my dying day. Why? Because how dare you use me for my resources and then turn around and tell me I'm not good enough to help you? How dare you tell me that I'm not good enough, but you have people in same said animation group that can't even animate? Just look at the material. They can't even animate. Why are they even there? And I would tell Trickster time and time again. I told Trickster in 2011. I told Trickster again in 2014. I told Trickster in 2015. I told Trickster even as recent as 2020. I'm like, why do you have individuals in your group that can't animate, but they're part of your group? Why are they part of your company if they can't do the job description? I said, you might want to reevaluate exactly what you have going for you. And Trickster's the type of person, he'll hear me, it'll process, but he doesn't listen to me because, let's just be honest, Trickster doesn't respect me. So I'm putting this out there to let you know, if somebody doesn't respect you, they're not listening to you, you need to cut them off. Just cut them off. Don't even bother getting mad about it. Don't even bother gossiping about it. Don't even bother grieving. Cut them off. Live your mother flipping life. Okay. And I should have stuck to my guns, but it wasn't until we ran into an incident during 2020 where I finally was like, you know what? You're just trash, Trickster. You are just trash. Okay. Trickster's one of those people, like I said, he'll hear you. And if there's nothing in there for them to gain that doesn't involve them doing the work, no, he's not going to respect you. No. Trickster's one of those people, like I said, unless you are the one paying the bill, unless you're the one carrying the load, unless you're just offering things to Trickster, Trickster doesn't pay attention to you. Oh, no. Oh, no, no, no. Trickster will mentally check out and is already looking at the next grift. Trickster will already be looking at somebody else that they're talking to, some other situation they're getting involved in. It's always an advantage to the next scheme. That's Trickster. That is Trickster indeed. We fell out again in 2020 over a misunderstanding. And I let it be known. I said, I'm pissed at you because you use people and you don't even look at how you make them feel. This is your problem. See, it doesn't affect you until it directly targets you. And unless it directly targets you, you don't care. That's not true. It is true. I'm going to put this out there as well. Trickster's girlfriends, ex-girlfriends, what Trickster doesn't know is his ex-girlfriends would come and talk to me because they know that Muru has empathy. Muru can relate to them. Muru understands where they're coming from and their perspective. And here's how I know they know that we know. The first thing they would say is, I love Trickster, but I can't afford to be in love with Trickster. And I said, oh, baby, let me guess. You thought you were dealing with one thing and you think that Trickster would get it, but then he flips the script and turns it as if it's into your fault. And they're like, oh my God, yes, I was wondering what was going on. I said, no, that's Trickster. I said, well, he doesn't realize what he does. No, he realizes he does it. He just doesn't want to take accountability for it. Is whenever Trickster's bad behavior is called into play over their actions, okay, the first instinct Trickster does, because of course he doesn't like being put in the spotlight for accountability. Of course not. The first thing he'll attempt to do is he'll attempt to gaslight you. So I will challenge anybody to look up the definition of gaslighting. But this is the thing that Trickster will do. He will attempt to gaslight you into thinking another reality, or basically challenging your perspective on reality of what happened. Unfortunately, with people like me, where my memories serve with my emotions, fam, I lay out facts, screenshots, and the shit you did. And let me tell you, this dude will gaslight you. So when you're dealing with a gaslighter, run the other way. Because if not, I'm telling you, the damage they will wreak on your whole sense of being is very messed up. Tune in for part 3 of Trickster.